welcome you to this talk and look forward to showcasing what the School of Sport and Exercise Science has to offer here at our university. For this evening's events, we have assembled a panel of speakers who are going to talk to you about a range of areas that exemplify many of the key aspects of the student experience here in the School of Sport and Exercise Science. Now, before we start, we're each going to introduce ourselves. So, my name is Dr. Trish Jackman, and I'm a lecturer in sport and exercise psychology here at the university. I teach on our undergraduate and our postgraduate modules, and I will be coordinating tonight's talk. So, at this point, I'm going to turn to my fellow speakers to introduce themselves. So, Mel, if you'd like to start us off.
Hello, and good evening. Good to see you all. My name's Dr. Mel Bodge. I am a lecturer in exercise physiology, and I teach predominantly on nutrition and physiology modules within the undergraduate and master's courses. I'm also the programme leader for the health and exercise science course.
And Tom?
Yes, I'm Tom G, senior lecturer in strength conditioning and programme leader of the strength conditioning sport degree. So I teach on undergraduate strength conditioning modules and also on the masters in sports science as well.
Fantastic. And Jez, welcome to you this evening.
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invite. So Jez George, Director of Football at Lincoln City Football Club. And perhaps later on in the hour, I'll just be talking about how we already work with the university to offer some of your students some opportunities and give you a couple of case studies of current staff who have made the journey from being students with yourselves to full-time members of staff at the football club.
Fantastic. We can't wait to hear all about that as we work through this evening. So thank you everyone for your introductions. So we're going to start off tonight by giving you a little bit of a flavour of some of the learning and the education that we deliver here in the School of Sport and Exercise Science. So just to give you a little bit of an overview of what we're going to work through this evening. So we're firstly going to start off and look a little bit at what students learn about in the School of Sport and Exercise Science. So we're going to give you two disciplinary perspectives this evening on a very topical and current issue in our society. We're also going to then engage in a question and answers about careers and employment. So how can our students be equipped and prepared to go out there into the real world and secure employment? And we're also then going to talk and embed this in our discussion with Jez as well in relation to community engagement and the really strong connections and relationships we have here with organisations outside of our university and how that plays a key role in what we deliver here in the school. Now, in terms of the programs that we have on offer here at the university, so we have 6 programs at undergraduate level that we do deliver here in the school. We're going to get into a discussion later on to look at the career pathways that are on offer across all of these degrees and also the potential opportunities that exist for our students to gain industry experience alongside, of course, getting their degree whilst they're here in the school. Now, one of the key aspects I've touched on so far is this idea of experience. And one of the key focuses of our programs is to equip students for the real world, to equip them for what is going to be coming in society, the challenges that we all face right here and right now. So for us here this evening, we're going to take one issue in society. We're going to focus in on the topic of obesity. And Mel is initially going to talk about it from one perspective and one lens that we might approach it from a health and exercise perspective. And then I'm going to come in and talk about how we might approach this same problem, but from a different angle, focusing on the psychology of it. So I'm now going to hand over to Mel to take us through the next stage in our talk.
As Trish has just mentioned, I'm going to start things off and really to just set the scene and set the picture. I suppose we've got to talk about what obesity is and actually why it's such a big societal issue. So Obesity is one of today's biggest societal issues, and that's not just within the UK, but actually within a number of other countries worldwide. And the association between obesity and an increased risk of many diseases, but also mortality, is really well documented. And most recently, you've probably heard within the media, it's actually been linked with COVID-19. So in terms of some kind of statistics, in 2018 and 19, there was actually as many as 876,000 hospital admissions where obesity was recorded as either the primary or the secondary diagnosis. And that's actually an increase of up to 23% from the previous year and continues to increase year on year since. This has huge implications on the NHS, where there is estimated spend of up to 6 billion each year on overweight and obesity related ill health. So currently within the UK, over half the population is actually classified as overweight or obese, and that's within both adults and children. I suppose this is the key reason why reducing obesity is one of the priorities of the public health sector in England at present. So obesity itself is complex. There's so many different contributing factors that include our environment, our physiology, and also our psychology. But specifically and most importantly, it's actually the interaction of all these drivers as well. At its most simplest level, we know that obesity is caused by this greater energy intake than our body actually uses up. And within the School of Sport and Exercise Science, our students are prepared to understand these factors and learn the skills and the knowledge of how to support individuals, both within the management of this and the prevention of this. And one of the avenues I'll just talk to you about is nutrition and their diet. So these are the kind of theory that we do teach our students within our course. So again, as a bit of a background understanding, currently within the UK, a large population of children and adults are not meeting dietary recommendations. And across the population, we are consuming too much saturated fat, added sugar and salt, and really not enough fruits, vegetables, fibres and oily fish. Currently, within the pandemic, a recent study has actually found that there has been some changes in nutritional behaviour, and it has shown that although people are, eating at home more, they're cooking from scratch, there are people which are snacking on cakes, biscuits, and savoury snacks more often than compared to before. And we know that helping people to eat a well-balanced diet is very important in achieving and maintaining this healthy weight. However, nutrition and our eating behaviour, just like obesity, is complex. Our students learn to understand these factors in order to promote healthier eating. So we all know that one of our key drivers is, of course, hunger. So when we feel hungry, we want to eat. But actually why we choose to eat and what we choose to eat is determined by a number of other factors that aren't just physiological or nutritional. Some of these factors are things like our taste and our personal preferences, things also like cost, income and availability, whether you've got a local takeaway or grocery shop, things like physical determinants, so your cooking ability and skills, and also the time that you actually have to cook. Finally, probably factors things like culture or influences from our family and our friends. And as you can see, there are many more, and this is not an exhaustive list, and that really highlights the complexity of this. Therefore, one type of intervention to address this and modify an individual's diet and nutrition will actually not suit all population groups. So our students are equipped with knowing what all of these promotion programs are to enable them to gear it towards the individual and their specific needs. So our students learn all about the current UK nutritional guidelines. So the Eat Well Guide, shows how much of what we eat overall should come from food groups to achieve a healthy, balanced diet. And this guide, as you can see, is made up of 5 different food groups with the specific portions also illustrated. So we have our fruit and our vegetables, our potatoes, breads, pastas, other starchy carbohydrates, things like our beans, pulses, eggs, okay, and then dairy alternatives and also oil and spreads. And if you choose a variety of these foods from the groups within these, effectively you are able to have a balanced and well nutritionally valuable diet. Okay. Foods high in natural fats and salt and sugar are not obviously needed in our diet. So if you do choose to include them, do try to do this a lot less, and then not forgetting also our hydration. So from a kind of general perspective, it's to look to drink 6 to 8 glasses of water a day. When we promote healthy eating, it's really quite hard to make the healthy choices if you don't actually know what food you're eating. And again, in order for our students to prescribe healthy eating recommendations, we are actually quite fortunate within Britain that we do have lists of ingredients on all of our processed foods and our non-alcoholic drinks. So we teach our students about food labelling and the ingredients and actually how to clearly understand these and analyse these. In addition, to make it easier to compare products and to make quick, healthier choices, there is now a really big drive for all packaging to have this front of pack labelling. And it also has a easy to understand traffic light system. So quite simply, for a healthier choice, what you would do is to choose more greens and fewer reds. And if food does contain a red label, then try to actually limit the number of times you can eat this. And this is easy accessible, so if you nip into a shop to grab your lunch, choose between 2 different sandwich packages, and really you're looking for those that have more green labels on. Finally, we know that advertising and marketing are huge influences on our food choices, and analysis from actually last year showed that 43% of all of our food and drink products are actually located in prominent areas within a store. So this is areas such as the entrances, the checkouts, and the aisle ends. These tend to be foods that are high in sugar and fats, and also our drinks. And less than 1% of the food and drink products promoted in these high-profile locations were those foods such as fruit and vegetables. In terms of advertising, again, which has a huge influence on our food choices, the statistics show that 48% of all food adverts were for high salt, fat and sugary products. And this actually rose to nearly 60% during peak times of 6 to 9 p.m. And because of this, recently the Department of Health and Social Care have announced a new set of policies, and they want to change the environment. So they're actually legislating to end the promotion of these products by volume, so things like our buy one get one free offers, and address their location in store. So for example, on the aisles and at the checkouts. In addition to this, in terms of TV advertisement, they're aiming to ban the advertisement of these before 9 a.m. and hopefully that will come into existence before 2022. So that's given you a really brief whistle-stop tour of some of the information that our students would learn about in a number of the modules within each year. And this really progresses from year 1, where you understand the foundation of this, to year 2 and year 3, where students develop the skills to effectively assess diet and nutrition, and then year 3, where you're actually working on a very applied, practical level, where you build the skills required to effectively work with a client. So I'll pass on to Trish now to take it from a different angle.
Thank you very much, Mel. So For this talk, or this part of the talk, I'm now going to focus on the other side of the perspective here, and I'm going to look at physical inactivity. And in particular, there are two key areas that this part of the talk is going to demonstrate when it comes to the education experience here at our university. And that is this idea of critical thinking skills and also research engaged teaching. So what I'm going to do is provide you an example of how we actually use research in our teaching and the benefits of that for our students, not only from a research perspective and a learning perspective, but also in terms of how they go out and work with people in the real world as well. So when we look at physical inactivity, one of the biggest issues that we have at present globally is the physical inactivity epidemic. And it has been referred to by the World Health Organization as a global health problem. Now, if we look at here in the UK, we know that more than 1 in 3 adults is not meeting the recommended guidelines for physical activity. So a key question that we have been asking in our research is how can we promote physical activity more effectively? And I'm going to specifically talk about a project led by my colleague Rebecca Hawkins, which is focused on this very issue, on this idea, are we promoting physical activity in the most effective manner? Now, when we think about the physical activity guidelines, we often think about the recommendations. So they're typically 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise in a week. We also have 75 minutes of vigorous intensity exercise in a week, and they're generally the standard recommendations from the National Health Service, the World Health Organization, the American College of Sports Medicine. What you'll notice about all of these recommendations is that they tend to be very specific, time-based, and measurable. Essentially, if we look at the physical activity guidelines, they tend to align with the SMART goal heuristic. Now, I'm sure lots of you listening in here this evening have heard of a SMART goal. When we set goals, we're often told to make it specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based. This is something that's not only recommended in sport or in exercise, but beyond that, and into education and in business settings where the SMART goal heuristic actually was developed. But what we've started to look at is whether or not the SMART goal principle is necessarily the best way to promote physical activity. And I'm going to give you an example of that here this evening in terms of a research example, which is very much a key part of our psychology teaching here at the university. And we're going to hone in on one of these aspects, and we're very much going to focus on the specific elements of a SMART goal. So when we talk about something as specific, it's going to be very focused on something that we want to achieve. Now, if we look at goal setting theory. So we shift away from the SMART goal heuristic and that acronym, and we actually look at what theory says. So if we look at what goal setting theory, Locke and Latham's theory, which has been developed over several decades, if we go back to even the earliest stages of goal setting theory, these authors suggested that specific challenging goals may actually hurt performance in certain circumstances. Now, for most people, if they are physically inactive or they're insufficiently active, going out and exercising for 150 minutes over the course of a week or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity exercise could actually be quite a challenge, especially if you haven't done it for quite a long time. And the certain circumstances that Locke and Latham referred to was actually when people are new to a complex task. So they propose that when somebody is new to a complex task, so a complex task could actually be engaging in physical activity because you need to manage your day around fitting in your physical activity, or you need to be able to travel to get to that point, or maybe you just need to engage in new behaviors. So because physical activity for people who are not active is potentially a complex task and something that is quite new because they haven't done it for quite a while, setting those specific challenging goals potentially could actually present a bit of a challenge. That's the question that we've been asking. Because if the physical activity guidelines are telling people to set specific goals, is there potentially what we call a misinterpretation of the theory into practice? So this is an important question that has been researched by Rebecca Hawkins here at the university. And Rebecca's research specifically looked to compare the SMART goal to what has been termed an open goal. Now, you may never have heard of an open goal before, so that has started to emerge in recent years in some of our work with athletes and exercisers who have reported really positive, rewarding experiences when they've been pursuing goals that are vaguer, that they're not specific, they're not measurable, and they're not time-based. So they could be simply phrased as see how well you can do. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the findings from this research and some of the key implications that arise from it. So in this work, there were two groups. So there was individuals who were active and also those who were insufficiently active. So they were categorized based on whether or not they were meeting the physical activity guidelines in the case of the active adults. And our insufficiently active adults were individuals who were engaging in 30 minutes or less of physical activity in a week. All of these participants came into our labs on separate occasions, and they had 4 different conditions. So each of them undertook a walking task where they were set a specific goal, an open goal, a do your best goal, or a control goal. So they came in 4 times and they experienced these 4 different conditions in a random order. And you'll see that the goal conditions and the instructions that were given to them. So in the specific goal, they had to walk a specific distance in a specific time. So very much aligning with our SMART goal principle. The open goal, see how far you can walk. Do your best was, as the name suggests, do your best. And in the control condition, there was no instruction. Now, in the next 3 slides, I'm going to highlight some of the key findings that arose from this work. So on the left-hand side, you should see the active adults, and on the right, you will see the insufficiently active adults. One of the key findings was that there were significant differences in the distance walked. So what you'll notice on the left-hand side is that the active group walked significantly further when they were pursuing the specific goal versus when they were pursuing the open goal. But what you will also notice on the opposite side is that the insufficiently active group actually responded quite differently. And they walked significantly further when pursuing the open goal versus the specific goal. So that has now started to suggest that there's some differences in terms of performance and the distance walked in these 2 groups. The SMART goal group walked further and walked significantly further when pursuing the SMART specific goal, whereas the insufficiently active group, they walk further when pursuing the open goal. So that's the first key finding. The second key finding now starts to look at people's experiences, and this is probably one of the most striking and important findings in this research. Pleasure, so the level of pleasure we have during physical activity is one of the strongest predictors of whether or not we want to engage in that activity in the long run. Now, if we look at the responses in terms of pleasure in these 2 groups, we can see very contrasting responses. So in the active group, what you will see is they responded significantly better, and they found that the specific goal was significantly more pleasurable than the open goal. But there was a very contrasting response in the case of those who were insufficiently active. So what you see here is that the specific goal produced significantly lower levels of pleasure. So essentially, our insufficiently active group found that pursuing an open goal was much more pleasant than pursuing a specific goal. And if we extend this finding on to looking at the enjoyment levels, we also see a similar trend. So the specific goal was more enjoyable for those who were in the active group, whereas the open goal was significantly more pleasurable for those who were in the insufficiently active group. Now, all of these findings actually encourage us to pose some really important questions. And this is a prime example of the critical thinking aspect, where we're encouraging our students to think about current ways of doing things in society and whether or not there are more effective ways to do them. So what are the implications of this work that has been undertaken here in our school? It raises some important questions. For example, at present, we prescribe physical activity and we recommend the setting of goals in the same way for everybody. But this research starts to question, are we actually doing the right thing if we're trying to promote physical activity in all groups by setting the same types of goals? Because potentially, is setting someone a specific goal, if they're new to engaging in physical activity, going to be the most beneficial thing for them? Are they going to find that experience pleasurable, and are they going to enjoy it? Because if they don't, they're less likely to want to come back and to do it again. And that then raises the second question, is do we actually need to think about an alternative approach for promoting physical activity in those who are not active enough? And that is one of the key questions that we have here, something that you can see in the published research as well. Now, one of the real advantages when we have research like this and we deliver this in our teaching is that there are several key benefits to that. So in the last review of research in the UK, where they assessed the quality of research at all of our universities, over half of the research conducted in our school was considered to be internationally excellent or world leading. Therefore, our students have an opportunity to engage with some of the most contemporary and cutting-edge research that has been undertaken. So we don't just cover what's in the textbooks, we also expose our students to some of the latest researchers that we are conducting as staff members. In turn, that also allows our students to get really invested and immersed in the research process. They develop those critical thinking skills, and they then start to understand how we go about conducting a research project. In turn, that not only equips our students to engage in independent research projects as part of their degree, but it also equips them with the skills they will require to go out there and deliver real-world interventions. So they now understand how to critique research, how to synthesize evidence, and how to ultimately put that into practice when they're out there working in the real world. So thus far, we've given you a bit of a glimpse into the teaching approach here within our school, and I hope that that's given you a flavour of the different angles that we could approach societal issues and very contemporary issues that many of our graduates and our students are going to be trying to work with when they graduate. So at this point, we're going to now turn to additional elements that we feel really showcase some of the distinct qualities of our schools. So when our students graduate, their degree is obviously going to be a huge asset to them. It's going to be really beneficial in terms of seeking employment. But to really bolster and strengthen the likelihood of gaining employment after university, we as a school place a huge emphasis on supporting our students to increase their employability skills and essentially equip themselves to work when they graduate. So there are several ways in which we do this, and I'm now going to turn to Tom and later to Mel and to Jez to talk about some of the ways in which we seek to boost the career opportunities for our students. So as a starting point, Tom, can you first tell us about some of the career pathways that students in the programs we've spoken about earlier will pursue after their degree, in getting their degree in the School of Sport and Exercise Science, and any examples that come to mind for you as well?
Yeah, so obviously there's 6 programs, undergraduate programs throughout the school. So the range of careers can be quite diverse, but obviously mostly within the kind of sports sector. So just to run through examples, from sport and exercise science, often for a lot of students have the goal of being a sports scientist, within the sports club, such as students have gone on to work at Lincoln City or other related sports clubs. Sports scientists at a government-funded institution, so those that support kind of Olympic and higher level athletes. Others have gone on to be sports science technicians, perhaps working at university or college, whereas other people from the sport and exercise science have gone on to teacher training or to lecture at the college or university level as well. So within the sports therapy degree, so students from that course would typically aim to be sports therapists for professional sports clubs or set up their own private practices. Within the PE degree, so that's physical education, so a lot of the students have the goal of being a PE teacher, so they subsequently go on for their teacher training following the degree. However, some students go into the coaching sphere from that course as well. Kind of that leads on to sports development coaching. But a lot of those students, their goal is to be a sport coach in some form, whether that's working at the higher level with clubs or within the community as a community sports coach. And other people from that degree have gone on to be sport development officers as well. With the strength conditioning degree, so most of those students have the goal of being a strength conditioning coach. Again, either working at a sports club or for a government-funded institution working with Olympic athletes. However, if some students find themselves leaning more towards the general population fitness side of things throughout the S&C degree, then we have had students go on to work as personal trainers or have the goal of getting into fitness management as well. Whereas the health and exercise science degree, so students have gone into exercise referral, again within the fitness industry as personal trainers, gym managers, and have also gone on to teacher training as well. There are some other diverse pathways as well. So people from the degree have gone to be PTI instructors for like various services such as the fire service. We've also had individuals graduate the SES degree going and working for Dell. And we've also had an individual graduate the strength and conditioning degree and going to work within medical sales as well. So the pathways are often sport related, but they can diverse out as well.
Thanks, Tom. That really highlights the full breadth of career pathways that many of our students embark on after they've graduated. And there's so many of those transferable skills that I think really come throughout the time here within the school, which position them really strongly to pursue a career after their graduation. Jez, I might turn to you at this point. So as an employer in the sports industry, what are some of the key things that you're looking for employees in terms of skills and experience?
Yeah, I think just first of all, the nature of our business is it's so incredibly competitive to work in the field. So to give you an example of that, in the last probably 18 months, we've advertised 2 full-time posts, one as performance analyst for our first team, one as lead sports scientist for our academy, and would have had between about 80 and 100 applications for each of those roles. And we would just try and look at students or applicants who would have something that differentiates themselves from others. So part of that would be qualifications, to be honest. I'll give an example again, just to differentiate by adding a master's qualification as a filter in that process. We'd probably get maybe to 1/4 of those applicants. So that would be a big thing for us, the commitment to qualify and your studies. And then it is just real significant work experience opportunity. So not necessarily someone who's been employed full time. We understand there's going to be new entrants into the industry, but people have gone out of their way to get really significant work experience during their time at university, because for us that's the biggest differentiator, the biggest indicator of commitment, and also practically is going to equip the student, or the applicant I should say, to hit the ground running with us and to have more of an understanding of, we feel like, the fast-paced nature and the pressurized environment that professional football is.
Fantastic. And I think what's really coming through is that importance of experience. So Tom, if I come back to you there, so experience is really crucial to get employment. That's a key differentiating factor, as Jez mentioned there. Can you talk us through some of the industry experience that our students will or can gain directly on their programs here in the school?
Yeah, so again, I'll run through the programs. So we have the sport development coaching degree, and that has plenty of experience at all levels. So there's 20 hours at at schools at level 1, then 20 hours at level 2, and 25 hours at level 3, with schools and partners as well within the sports development coaching degree. Within the strength and conditioning degree, level 1, the students work weekly in a applied clinic. So basically provide supervised S&C support, strength and conditioning support to university-based athletes. At level 2, they go on a 10-week placement with a Lincoln-based sports club. Then at level 3, they have a 12-week case study where they work one-to-one with given applied support to an athlete. Sports therapy, they amass 200 hours of supervised experience across their degree, and that gives them the ability to apply for accreditation post graduation, provided they obtain those hours. The PE degrees of physical education, so that is a primary school placement at level 1, then there are secondary school placements at level 2 and 3, and the health and exercise science degree, at level 2, there is students go and work with a local and support a local organisation, a health promotion scheme. Then at level 3, they work through their own health intervention with a client. Then for the sport and exercise science degree, at level 3, there are numerous opportunities. So the advanced sport physiology, they're doing fitness assessments for a real life athlete as part of their assignment. Then nutrition module, they have a case study client. Then there's also a case study opportunity for the strength and conditioning module of the sport and exercise science degree as well.
Okay, fantastic, Tom. Thank you for that. Mel, I'm just going to come back to you again, and I'd like to know, so we have those opportunities within the programs, but what other additional opportunities do we have for the students to improve their CVs whilst they're in our school?
Yeah, okay, so we do have a number of opportunities in the school that really aims to support the students in gaining this relevant applied experience. So it enables them to enhance the skills that are very much transferable to a number of the career pathways that Tom's mentioned, but also to provide them with that differentiation between those individuals that don't go out of their way or don't have these opportunities, just such as what Jez said. So these opportunities are actually showcased at our annual student opportunities fair, and this enables, we have representatives from local and our partner organisations that come for a night every year, so it's an annual event. And this highlights the opportunities going around within the local Lincolnshire area, within sport, exercise and the health sector. And that's to enable students to gain that exposure to all of the experience out there. And it's also a really fantastic kind of networking event, and it enables them to see kind of the different career pathways that people have gone into and that you can go into. We have a number of opportunities that also arise throughout the year. So we have local organisations that contact us throughout the year and want their opportunities to be advertised. And we're quite fortunate enough to have our own Impress blog, which is a dedicated student-centred network that again very much supports students in gaining this relevant applied skills and experience. And this advertises both the voluntary and there's also paid opportunities that come up throughout the year in very much diverse ranges. So we have, opportunities to work with local football clubs from kind of youth level, and whether that's from a sports scientist point of view, sports therapy, or coaching and physical education. Not only that, but as a school, again, we're really fortunate as staff and recent graduates that we have a range of industry experience, and again, with that comes contacts as well, be it within teaching and the applied coaching and practitioner roles, or even health and our sports therapy consultation. And they support the students, and advise the students. So again, another event for these opportunities to be showcased is at our annual alumni event. So this allows students to hear from recent graduates as to their career pathways, enabling them to understand what the skills are that they need to gain to get into these kind of career avenues. And some of the other opportunities that we have within the school, also we have a sport and health outreach team. So this is a team where students actually work alongside our staff and often actually end up leading the role. And it's delivering workshops to local schools, be it from primary schools with gifted and talented through to kind of your A levels and college level. And this really provides students with the ability to enhance their CV by increasing leadership, increasing their communication, and ultimately we see students really improving in their confidence and their competence, which is really fundamental for all of the career pathways that our students go into. In addition to that, we also have what we call our Spots and COTS program, which enables our students to support the university sports teams, and this is either in a sports scientist role or in a coaching role. And what they do is work alongside a designated university team, and they actually plan and deliver weekly sessions. And this is mentored also by the staff. And then finally, through our partnership with Lincoln City FC, we do have a number of internships in things like performance analysis, S&C, and sports science, in which students can work alongside also doing their studies, whether it be at undergrad or the master's level.
Great, thank you, Mel, and that links nicely into our discussion here with Jez. So, Jez, as Director of Football at Lincoln City Football Club, can you talk us through the partnership that has been established between the school and your football club in recent years?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, look, we just have loads of really talented, motivated young students who come from University of Lincoln to, we hope, gain something from the experience with us, and we certainly gain something from the added resource that we get and the vision that we're able to give to our players. So look, this just gives you a little bit of an idea of what Lincoln City Football Club looks like behind the scenes. Everybody knows what happens on a 3 o'clock on a Saturday when they see the team play. So this is the team behind the team, really. And it just shows you the different areas that report into me. So that would be sports science and medicine, performance analysis, recruitment, operations, which is really around our logistics, but also the development of the training ground, and then the academy. So there will be some areas there where quite a number of names on that graph there, that diagram there, will be alumni of the University of Lincoln. So the most recent addition to that would be young Harry Rossington, who's just completed a master's with yourselves, and is now a full-time member of staff with us, assisting in the sports science department. So yeah, that would give you an idea about the breadth of the opportunities, and that would be the staff structure within our first team. If you flick to the next slide, that would be what happens in our academy. So the academy for 9s to 18s, split into 3 different phases that are led by 3 different coaches, opportunities within the actual work on the grass with the young players, but then again within the medical department and within the sports science department. And a couple of names to mention there particularly, so Kieran Walker, who's an ex-scholar at Lincoln City, went and did his degree at University of Lincoln, then a physiotherapy qualification, so he's now chartered physio, young man, 24 years old, heads up our sports science and medicine department for the academy, so that's a fantastic opportunity for him at such a young age. And then within the analysis department, if you like, of the academy, We've got a number of your students at the moment who are making a real contribution. So Jack Irwin, who I believe does a little bit of lecturing with yourself and was a master's student last year and was with us last year. He assists us in that department. And then we've got 3 students at the moment, Sam, Hakeem and Ethan, who work across the first team and the academy under a guy called Joe Hutchinson, who, you know, previous experience working with all the underage England teams. So we think we've got some really good staff and some really good people to lead the departments. And provide some real good mentoring and development opportunities for your students. But we gain massively from the contribution that the students make as well.
Yeah, fantastic, Jez. That's great to hear. And I know Jack, Sam, Ethan, and Hakeem have recently graduated from our undergraduate programs and have all gone on to postgraduate study. And it's fantastic to see the impact that they're having. So overall, since this partnership, I suppose, has come about, what impact are our students making on the club at present?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been interesting to see the incredible progress of your institution and ours. You know, it's almost been a little bit of a parallel growth. So, you know, I've just been in Lincoln for 2.5 years, but I know what the football club looked like 5 years ago and what it looks like now, and it's unrecognisable. And I can see loads of buildings that go up in the city that all have your logo on. So I know how successful the university's been and how much you're growing. So I just think we're 2 really complementary organisations that are really passionate about developing young people and providing opportunities for young people. And it's interesting, you know, the word experience gets misused, I think, quite regularly. People think experience means you might not be able to see in this light, but really grey hair that I have, and it means you're really old. It doesn't mean that at all. It means maximising opportunities for me. And that's really what we've been able to provide, hopefully, some of your students, which gives them a pathway into employment. And if not a pathway into employment with Lincoln City Football Club, because we won't be able to do that for everyone, a pathway into employment within professional sporting organisations. And from our perspective, they've massively enhanced our programme. That's the truth. They've really helped develop our young players. So, you know, for us, we're passionate, whether it's young members of staff or young football players, we want to help people to fulfil their potential. And a number of your students have been really active in doing that, from the very youngest in our care, which are 6, 7, 8-year-olds in the youngest age groups within our academy, all the way through to the first team. So really massive, important partnership for us. We're really privileged and honoured to be able to call ourselves partners of the University of Lincoln. We see really motivated, committed, talented students who make a real big contribution to our football club, and we hope that it's reciprocated and that we are making a small contribution to them and helping them alongside their studies and for their futures.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great. I do have another follow-up question I'm interested to explore, but at this point, I'd just like to see if anyone does have questions that you would like to ask of any of us at this point. Please feel free to add them into the chat at this point. So Alison has asked a question: do we have links with any other clubs or sports organizations other than football? So I'll start off on this one. I might see if any of my colleagues want to jump in here. I know, Tom, you may want to flag some of the strength and conditioning links. But I suppose, Alison, yeah, we do. So we have, for example, with Lincolnshire Cricket, we have a partnership with them, and it's some of our students over the last couple of years have been involved in sports science support with Lincolnshire Cricket. We also have relationships with GB Canoeing. So we have some, you know, very high level, high performing athletes coming in here for testing, and again, that gives our students an opportunity to work in high performance. So they would be just some of the examples that spring to mind at this point. We also have links through the Spots and Cots program with the various teams here at our university. So our students, when they go out as sport practitioners of team sports or coaches of team sports, they can work with a whole array of teams here at our university. So there will be opportunity to look into different sporting activities as well. And Tom, I might get you to come in here and just talk a little bit about the strength and conditioning clinic, if you would.
Yeah, so the strength and conditioning clinic at the first year is more in the support of university-based athletes. So, for instance, those players perhaps playing for the rugby team, hockey team, netball team at the uni. But then our links come through at the level 2, where the students go on the placement with the local sports team. So in the last 3 years that we've been running the degree, students have gone out to Lincoln City, Lincoln Rugby Club, Lincoln Canoe Club, Lincoln Golf Club, Lincoln Squash, Lincolnshire Cricket, and Lincolnshire Bombers, American football. So a really wide range of different Lincoln-based sports clubs that students have gone out and done that strength and conditioning support for a period of 10 to 12 weeks with. I think we got a question there about the sports scholarships as well. So yeah, we do have a sports scholarship program. So we take applications from that. For that, the deadline is every October. So you apply once you get to the university, and we traditionally take on between 8 to 12 people per year. It depends upon the standard of athlete. But yeah, so we have a sports scholarship program where the students are provided funding to contribute towards their sport, and also they're provided with sports science support as well through various staff members within the department. So, and strength and conditioning sport is a very popular choice for the athletes on the sports scholarship program. So there's 4 strength and conditioning coaches in the department, and we all take turns or provide S&C support to different athletes on that scholarship program.
Yeah, and I think there's a huge range of support there for the athletes. I know I offer and deliver sports psychology and performance lifestyle support. I know some of my colleagues deliver physiology and biomechanics. It's a really excellent scheme which helps our talented athletes to develop. So there's just another couple of questions there. So Alison has asked, how much contact time do we have with the students? So for every hour of lecture content that we would have, you also have a 90-minute seminar, which is the smaller groups where we work with you in those smaller groups. So for every module on a weekly basis, you'll have 2.5 hours of contact time. And I will, before the end of the session, also post in a link in relation to the upcoming virtual open day. So we do have a virtual open day coming up this weekend. So I know there'll be a link posted in there. And we'll also add a link for you to get a little bit of an insight into our Human Performance Centre. So the Human Performance Centre is our set of bespoke labs, and we're, it's very hard when you can't quite come to see it to try and recreate the images, because it's a very special place. And in terms of the facilities that are there and that are on offer and the access our students have to it, it really is excellent. So we'll also post in a link there in relation to that. So Jez, I might just come back to you just with another question. So you spoke about the intense competition, and you're trying to work out, who's going to get through in terms of getting to an interview stage for a role. So when you were looking at candidates, what is the importance, I suppose, of or I suppose having people who have experience within the environment? So you spoke a lot about how people have kind of come through the ranks within the club and the different roles, they're now in full-time positions. What is the value of that to you as an employer?
Yes, it's huge. And again, just to emphasize what I mean by experience, I don't mean age. Yeah. I think we're like that with players. We like to sign talented players rather than players of a certain age. So experience is relative to what you've done. You can be really experienced in a young age because you've gone out of your way to gain those experiences. So I think we would definitely look at people who have significant work experience within professional football, and then we can speak to other clubs and get really good character references and references from their time at those clubs. But again, let's be honest, just as we would always prefer to bring through our own players, we also prefer to produce and bring through our own staff. So the biggest maybe selling point I could give you as a football club in the same city is that there really is a genuine appetite from the football club to find pathways for students who attend University of Lincoln, have work placements with us, can go on and do postgrad qualifications, we can find a pathway for them and we can eventually employ them. And as I've said, there's several examples of that already, and we would love that to continue and be enhanced in the future, because, you know, if you looked at that organisational chart from Lincoln City 5 years ago, you'd have probably had about 3 names on it only. So the club's grown. It's grown from being a club struggling in the bottom half of the National League outside the Football League to hopefully an established top half League One club, which puts us in the top professional 50 professional clubs in the country. So we want to continue to grow our provision. We want to continue to develop the club, and we want to do that with really talented, driven, ambitious young people. So real big opportunities for your students to gain experience with us, but also potentially a pathway into the industry as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And it also reminds me of a point, you know, we can talk about experience, and someone has 20 years of experience, but that could be 1 year 20 times as opposed
100%,
to
yeah, 100%.
you're actually having that.
100%. We look at that all the time. It's for us, say footballers, it's number of games played, not how old you are. You can be 28 and play 30 games, or you can be, you know, we've got our 17-year-old boys in our first team at the moment. He'll gain loads of experience and be a really experienced footballer by the time he's 20. And a couple of the students that are working with us at the minute, so young Ethan, I watched him videoing 2 sessions at the same time today at the training ground, and it's all about maximising your opportunity. Everybody gets an opportunity, and then it's about the people who grab the opportunity and make the most of it. And we want to give opportunities to young people, and part of it is their technical competency and their knowledge, but part of it's character based as well. And it's trying to make the most of opportunities and earn the right to get into full-time employment. So yeah, we're really happy to work with you. We're really pleased to work with you. We can only think of ways that this partnership can grow in the future, and we're really committed to giving your students, whether they see their future with Lincoln City or not in the future, we just want to give them really, really good practical experiences that will stand them in good stead for their careers.
Okay, that's fantastic. Fantastic insight there, Jez, and thank you for sharing that with us. So at this point, everyone, I think we're starting to approach the 7 o'clock. So I'd like to thank you for the fantastic questions. As you see in the chat there, you will see I've posted a link to the virtual open day. So the virtual open day is taking place this Saturday. So if you want to hear more about the specific programs that we have on offer in the School of Sport and Exercise Science, you can click on to that link. I'm also going to post another link at this point, which is a guided tour of our Human Performance Centre, as I mentioned earlier. So you'll be able to have a virtual tour. So it's a YouTube video looking at some of the facilities that we have on offer and that you'd have an opportunity to access. But other than that, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. Thank you to our panel for coming along, and thank you to Jez as well for coming in and offering his insights from industry here this evening. So I'd like to thank you all and wish you all a good evening, and hopefully we'll see you very soon.